But one of the things I talk about in the book is that I too was born into the Democrat Party, just like I was born into brown skin on that little pig farm. And my family, we're very conservative. We were in church every time the church doors open.
Can you explain how we as black people are the only people that I know of in America who take their identity from their political point of view? If you run into a white person, a Latino person, an Asian person, you can't predict where they're at on the political spectrum. And they have the freedom to be anywhere on the political spectrum. They can be conservative, they can be liberal, they can be libertarian. But if you're black and you're not a liberal, somehow you're not black, you're kicked out of the race. How did that happen uniquely to us?
Yeah, I talk about it in my book, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, being black and conservative in America. And today, my book is reading like prophecy, and I am no prophet. I'm just very observant. Read my book. I'm telling you what was going to happen before it happened, and I'm telling you what is about to happen to our nation. And all I did was look at the black community as a petri dish of what happens when Democrats come in and take absolute control of everything, right? They leave people broken, and bruised. And I was putting out a clarion call that if we don't get our head out of the sand and believe these people when they say they want to fundamentally change our nation, what they have done in decimating the black community, they are going to do to the broader American culture. And I began to give examples of what would happen. And I wrote this book at the end of 2019. So again, I started giving examples of what will happen if we do not get our heads out of the sand. So again, the book is reading like prophecy. But one of the things I talk about in the book is that I too was born into the Democrat Party, just like I was born into brown skin on that little pig farm. And my family, we're very conservative. We were in church every time the church doors open. And those values that I saw growing up with my family certainly aren't the values that we see espoused in the Democrat Party, and yet we were Democrats. No one ever talked to me about it. I don't remember anyone saying, "Kathy, this is what you're going to vote Democrat when you become eligible to go in there and vote." And yet I remember reading and studying and trying to discern between the different people on the ballot when it was my turn to vote, and you never quite fully appreciate the subliminal messaging that's going on, how you've been hardwired, that even though I'm doing the research, that I'm still walking in, pulling the lever on every lever for Democrats on every single person. And it wasn't until I was a junior in college, I remember I'm taking finance classes, economic classes, that's my major, and I decided I wanted to be involved in politics. And I go to the first office I saw, which was a Democrat office, and I walk in thinking I know everything, and I say, "I want to help you in your campaign." And as I'm sitting there and he's talking to me for the first time, I had a thought. It seemed audible, but it wasn't. And I heard in my mind, do you even know what he believes? Do you even know if what he believes is what you believe? And I'm sitting there, this man is talking to me, feeling extremely uncomfortable because I'm going through my mind, well, what does he believe? And I couldn't remember, I don't know. I never checked. And I couldn't wait for him to take his first breath. The moment he did, I got up and ran out of the room. I know I looked crazy, but that was the beginning of a process of me understanding of aligning my values with or aligning those who say they want to represent me, watching what they're doing and determining whether their values and how it translates into policies actually match up with my policies, right? And then I began moving from voting completely Democrat and beginning to have a mixed bag to now solely being more so Republican than Democrat ever. I'll never vote for another Democrat. But, of doing that. But that took time, and it takes courage, because from, the history of our people with Abraham Lincoln, 1863, and the number of black pastors, gatekeepers, who was in charge of telling the black community how we were going to vote, and how that began to move. In my book, I talk about that as well, of how we started off Republican, and then by the time we got to FDR, the Great Depression, you began to see more and more black people trying to be a part of the Democrat Party, but Democrats were so doggone racist, they kept kicking them out. And then you began to see in 1964, 101 years later, Civil Rights Movement, and LBJ coming up, being the president with his name on the Civil Rights Bill, although it was Republicans that gave him the majority to pass the Civil Rights Bill. But history only talks about the president and the name who was on it. And then from that to his Great Society idea, and how, and then you began to see the using of our people. And that's one of the questions I would ask black people when I would go into predominantly black communities. I think it's a legitimate question. We know what Democrats get when they get our vote. They get the White House. They can't get the White House without securing 92 to 95% of our vote. But what exactly have we gotten for that loyalty? We know what they get, but what do we get?